Guys, this is Alex, and today I just received confirmation about one of my tracks being featured in a movie trailer. Like, this never happened before. I've been working with the labels for a year, and today is the first time my track actually landed on a movie trailer. And yeah, the movie is Ben Hur, the one that is coming out this month in August. And this is such a huge milestone for me because when I started, my music career 3 years ago, I knew absolutely nothing. So I want to talk to you today of how I got to from not even knowing what a scale or a chord is to having my music featured on a movie trailer, like a big movie trailer. And yeah, I have to start by saying that I'm super grateful about this. Like, it doesn't even feel real. I've I've been working with labels for a year now, but one thing is to work with the label, another thing is to land a trailer placements. The way the label work is that you basically are pretty much like a freelance composer for them, and you make your tracks which they put in their albums that are then sent to trailer editors or clients who then can choose the tracks and use them in trailers. And when that happens, when they pick one of your tracks and put it in a trailer, that's when you get paid as a composer, etc. But before your track gets placed in a trailer, like if you have no tracks placed in a trailer, you don't see a dime, because the label only gets paid if they pick your track. So the big target when you work with trailer labels is not only to have your tracks accepted in the albums, which is an ordeal in of itself, but it's also to have your track placed into like the ultimate target is to have your tracks placed into a movie trailer or an advertisement of some sorts. And that happened to me today finally. And yeah, so how I got here. So my story is pretty much weird in the way that, how to say it, like a normal a normal individual would have not gone about music as I did. And I don't know, I'm a kind of guy who is like, I'm very, very ambitious and very determined to get what I want in life, but that also sometimes puts me in difficult difficult environments or difficult situations. So here it is. Basically, when I started to make music 3 years ago, I was fresh out of high school or something like that. Like, I just started going to university to study information technology because that's what my high school major was. And at the same time, I started working on a web development office where we basically coded websites and application for web. And yeah, so that was my life for a while. And before finishing high school, I asked myself, what did I want to do with my life. And yeah, I was like, okay, I would like to, in that period I was like noticing that a lot of people in the music industry were coming out of nowhere, like for example Varian and Medion and stuff like that. And I noticed, like, very even before that period, I had this misconception that you could only make it in the music industry if you were, like, I don't know, son of someone who was famous, if you were already into it, that you could not. I thought that you could not make it in the music industry, or you could not have a music career unless you already had, how to say it in English, you already had connections in the industry and stuff like that. Unless you were already famous, you were never gonna get famous and stuff. So I always believed that until I saw people coming up out of nowhere, and young people too, and I said, well, if they are doing it, why can't I do it? So I started to ruminate about the idea that maybe I could, like, start to look into music and start to learn music production, etc. Because there are programs like FL Studio and stuff that let you, practice and compose, practice music production, compose music right in front of your computer without needing, a big studio or stuff. You just need a mouse and computer and screen to just make music nowadays. So since the entry barrier was so lowered, as I noticed, I decided to try that for real. And yeah, before that I had a little experience with FL Studio, like I spent a summer on it just for fun. But when I started to see the potential, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this. So as I finished high school, I was like hooked on this full studio thing and was like, okay, I would really love to make a career out of it, but I never studied music before. I do not know how to play instruments. I do not know music theory, and I do not know anyone in the music industry. So how the hell am I gonna do it? And I didn't know. But I did it anyway. And in the meantime, I kept going to the university and work at the web development office. So I did the three things together. Eventually, university, my interest started to decay and plateau because I don't know about other countries, but here in Italy, for what I saw, the university for information technology wasn't that appealing, and working in a web development office was much more how to say it. It allowed me to grow much faster and really apply the things that I studied. Instead, university only had me, study other things which I wouldn't apply for years until I finished that university, course. So yeah, I kind of ditched university, and my parents were so, angry because African parents are like, you have to, especially if you live in a foreign country. Like I live in Italy, but my origins are my parents are from Congo. Here we are. Strangers, so African parents in a stranger country usually want their kids to have a solid, educational path. They want us to get our university degree, master's degree, etc., so that we can finally prove ourselves to society as I don't know, doctors or CEOs and stuff. And I didn't want any of that. I just wanted to have a career in music, and in the meantime, while I developed my career in music, I would work at my IT job part-time, So I ditched university, and my parents were like close to disowning me and stuff like that because, yeah, African parents. But yeah, so that happened, and I kept working at the IT job because it was good money, and it was something like, sorry, there are people screaming here, maybe because of a football game or something. Wait a second, I'm gonna close the door. Okay. Anyway, I kept working at that job because it allowed me to, raise some money, which is always good. And in the meantime, I did FL Studio. And I got myself, since I wanted to really since I was real about this, it was really important for me, having a career in music. I started to invest in myself to catch up on the fact that I was super late compared to other producers, etc. Because a lot of other people started to make music since they were young. Like there are so many producers who were like, oh yeah, I'm good because I studied piano ever since I was 4 or stuff like that. And I was like the guy who was like 19 and had no musical education, had no musical experience. So I was like, okay, I need to catch up. So what I did is my initial plan was to get, a scholarship, or sorry, not a scholarship, but to get to professional music schools like in London, like the SEA Institute or something like that, to study music production so that I could catch up in a very fast way with my composer and producer peers, or yeah, to go to schools like that. So I started looking at the prices and was like something like 9k pounds per year, without even counting what you have to pay for your bedroom or stuff like that, and for your apartment and food, etc. It was like an insane, an insane amount of money. And yeah, and I started to look into forums where people discuss their experience with those schools. And what I found is that those professional music schools, like they teach you the technical stuff, etc., but they do not teach you how to be an artist, how to raise a really artistic career as a musician and stuff. They rather teach you how to be the engineering guy for some to work in some studios and stuff. So that wasn't what I wanted to do, and yeah, so eventually I was like, okay, this is not for me, and it also demands a lot of money, so it's not a good idea. So yeah, I kept browsing though, because like this is a concept I like. Like, if you want to get the right answers, you have to ask the right questions. And the right question for me was, how can I get better at music fast? And I kept googling and stuff until I found that Berkeley, like the music university, the American Music University, which is one of the biggest ones, I guess, had an online section called Berkeley Online. So they did like courses on very specific subjects, and you could pick one. And even if you had no experience with music and etc., there are some courses which were where the entry level was so low that like you could enter. So I was like, at the moment, at that time, I wanted to be an electronic music producer and not a composer. So I just got myself a course on Berkeley Online about electronic music production for something like $600 for 12 weeks or something like that. I don't remember. It was like 3 years ago, but yeah, I got on that course, and yeah, I started to study there. And if anything, those 12 weeks taught me how to not necessarily how to write electronic music. Like, yeah, it had some really interesting information on how to write music, etc. But the thing that taught me the most was to how to produce music. How to use, for example, a mixer in my DAW, or how to master a track, how to mix a track, how to write an arrangement and stuff. The basic stuff. But it taught it very well. So while at the end of the course, I wasn't, that this epic music producer who could now who could now have a professional music career. I was so much far ahead compared to what I was, in the months before, and I was much more far ahead than my producer peers who did not take any course and were like less serious about it. I was super serious from the start, and I always wanted to, like, always had this conception that the more I invest in my knowledge and in my learning, the faster I can get there to my target of of making a living through music. And so I kept investing and investing, and after the course, I was like, I noticed that one of my absolute favorite producers, who I followed at the time, I still follow now, who is Varian, was doing private lessons. So for a price, of course, it was something like maybe $50 an hour or $75 an hour. I don't remember, but he was making those, private lessons, and he was an artist that I admired very much, and I saw that as an opportunity. So I booked on his private lessons to ask him not, how can I make this sound, or how can I make this, technical stuff, but I asked him about his mindset, what took him to where he is. Because if you want to, achieve the same success of someone, or basically, if you want to be like someone, you have to understand what's in their mind. Not like, you have to understand how they do things, and mostly why. So we talked for about 2 sessions for 2 hours about the mindset you need to have, and the skills you need to acquire, and how you need to build a network of people around you and stuff like that, and why, etc. And it opened my mind. Like, the 2 hours I spent with that guy on Skype helped me to an extent that to get that knowledge without his help, it would have taken me like years, at least 1 year, if not more. Instead, I paid $150 from my web development, income, which wasn't much. Like, it was something, but not too much, because $150, they come back, but a whole year you spend on your life to learn those stuff, like, a year is much more expensive, in terms of, yeah. Anyway, So I got the courses from Varian, and I kept practicing all the time as I went to the Berkeley course, or as I had these private lessons with Varian and stuff. I kept practicing and practicing, and a year went by. So after a year of severe practicing, and if you want to learn more about how I practice, like there is a video blog from me called something like how to write better music or something like that. I released a month ago. Anyway, so I kept practicing, and okay, so I got to the point where I felt like I was sort of, acceptable. Like my music was kind of had sense, it had structure, and yeah, it was, in my opinion, it was good enough to start to trying to license it or sell it, as soundtracks. So I went to and Googled, like, again, ask the right questions, you get the right answers. I Googled how can I make money by selling my music and stuff like that, and I found a website called Audio Jungle, which is a website where you can sell, as a composer or as an artist, you can sell your music, and you basically upload your music and you sell the rights to use it for people. And for example, YouTubers who want to use background music for their videos can go to Audio Jungle. They can search like for some tags or stuff like that, and Audio Jungle basically returns them a list of related music to the search of the search that they made in their catalog. So there is like a whole catalog of music from many different artists, and when the client buys the rights to get the track, he basically can download the track and use it in a video indefinitely, and the composer gets a share from the sale. So I was like, okay, this is pretty cool, and I could monetize it. So I could try it, And at the time when I found the jungle, I was like, I skipped this detail. Yeah, before the Audio Jungle thing, and before the Audio Jungle thing, I kind of lost my job as a web developer, because they asked me like, Alex, you're working here part-time, and we're loving your work, but right now we need you to either go full-time or to leave your place for someone who can work full-time at your place. So they were asking me like I decided to work part-time at that job because I wanted to have some time to dedicate to music, because if I wanted to grow fast, I needed the time to put into the music. And if I worked at full time there, it would have meant that I wouldn't have had the same amount of time, and it would have taken me so much more, because I would have gotten home tired, frustrated, etc. When you have a job. And since I was young, and since this is was a very personal decision, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone actually. Since I was very young, and I live with my parents, etc., I figured that maybe I can, I could take a little sabbatical, take a break from everything, and dedicate myself to the music entirely. So I was like, okay, I cannot work here full time, because if I do work here full time, I'm never going to allocate my, focus and energy to the music. I'm going to allocate this energy and focus to the job, and when I get home, I have nothing left to give. So I would, instead of going in that direction, I decided to go the opposite direction, where I quit the job. And I was like, okay, as for money, I'm gonna find some ways to, earn a little bit, so that I can have something to invest into music. So I started doing, freelance web development gigs, because it's something I studied and something I am able to do. So I started making websites as a freelancer, but I didn't earn a full income, a full living, stuff like that. But it was enough to help me into buying softwares and courses and stuff like that, So at this time, I was basically jobless. And I saw the jungle. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool, and I can monetize it, and I can also test my level. That was the main thing. I could test my level of, music, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to sell my music here. And if they accept the track, because before they upload your track, you need to have it confirmed by the supervisor of the website. And it was like, if they accept the track, and if it sells, then maybe I'm like, after a year I'm doing some, it will be that maybe if they accept it, it will be a sign that after a year I am doing some good progress. So I uploaded the track to test, my skills. It got confirmed, and then after a few days it got its first sale, which was something like $9, which is nothing. But I was like on top of the world. I was like, yes! Someone thinks my music is good enough to be used in a media format for some video stuff. So I was like even more motivated to do this, And I started to make more tracks for Audio Jungle. And even if Audio Jungle didn't sustain me economically as a normal job would do, like I didn't earn something like for example, a normal income would be something like 1,200 euros, something like that. But Audio Jungle was like 200 euros per month, or that stuff. Not really substantial as an income, but it was a pretty cool training ground, because you could measure your success by the number of sales and the ratings that people would leave. And yeah, if your track wasn't good enough, the supervisor of this website will help you and give you guidelines on how to improve it. So it was really good training ground, and for me it was the ideal to practice, and basically practice and have a little bit income to invest into the libraries I use, etc. So I started doing that for a lot of time, and I have to point out that this is pretty much, I wouldn't recommend this to anyone else. This is like my story. I'm not giving advice or something like this here. You don't have to quit your job or stuff like that. Actually, I think that was probably a big mistake from my part. But like basically your success story doesn't have to be like someone else's success story. You don't have to do something because someone else is doing it. You have to know your own life, know your variables you can play with, and try to be wise about it in such a way that you can guarantee yourself to have that growth that will allow you to nail your dreams. And in my case, it was leaving that job and going freelance, both in music and web development and stuff. But in someone else's case, leaving the job might have been like a terrible mistake. So keep that in mind. Anyway, let's proceed. So where was I? I worked at Audio Jungle and stuff. And then I remembered Varian saying something like, if you want to grow up as a musician, you need to grow up your circle of, friends, because he said in the beginning, when you're making music, you're not alone. You're like with two, three other friends who also make music like you, and you all suck, basically, You're like the kids who make music but have no idea what they're doing. And that's cool. And when you get to become like if you feel like you're the best in the whole circle of friends, or your circle of influence, then it means you're ready to level up that circle of friends and to meet, because the idea of having a circle of friends is basically the same idea of having a mastermind group. So you basically have a group of people where, you're friends and you hang out together and you empower each other, And the ideal is to be in a circle of friends that has a lot of things to teach you, and that you also have something to teach too, So it has to be not a unidirectional relationship, but bidirectional, And with my friends, I felt like I had nothing left to learn from them, and all to teach to them, So it was unidirectional. So I was like, okay, I need to upgrade my circle of friends. So what I did is, on Audio Jungle, I saw like a guy who was really successful and wrote like really great music, which I really loved, and like every track he made was great, and he was like not too far from me, but he was superior, But I could teach him a few things about, music production, because since I had that music production background at Berkeley, I knew, technical stuff or stuff about synthesis or, audio production and stuff, which he didn't know. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna contact this guy. So I just sent him a message like, oh, I heard your track, it's pretty great, compliments, etc. And he was like, pleased. And he was like, oh yeah, great. I also listened to yours, like because he saw my message and then he went to find out who I was, and he listened to one of my Audio Jungle tracks, and he was impressed. He was like, this is pretty good, and like the track was like half orchestral, half electronic, so that might be also what stood up for him. And yeah, so we basically began to talk, and I told him, hey, mind if I add you on Facebook and stuff, because you seem like a great guy and we could teach each other some stuff, It wasn't me telling him, oh, please teach me stuff, I need knowledge, It was me telling him, hey, we should exchange, knowledge, because we have each other something to teach each other, And that is how, friendships and relationships are usually born, with a mutual exchange. Not you needing stuff from someone else and just absorbing it like a vampire. You have to give value, and yeah, receive it back, but also to give value. So that's what happened with him. And then I became great friends with him, because I added him on Facebook and we started talking, and we started talking about random stuff, girlfriends and video games, and because we were both young, and I noticed that his music was like inspired by video games, which I liked, and we started talking about random stuff. Like we spent hours talking, like two dudes, and not even talking about music. And that's how you want to network with people, because in the end, we are all people, even if you're connecting with a music producer, before being a music producer, he's a human, you need to treat it like such, That's how friendship is born. You don't go to someone and tell him, hey, how do you write music and stuff, and expect him to become your friend. Like, if you need someone to be your friend, like, yeah, you should treat him as such. So we started talking like friends, etc. And then, we, in many of our conversations, the topic popped out, and I was like, because I noticed that he also worked with trailer labels, and I was like, hey dude, like, you work with trailer labels, and how does that world works, And he was like, oh yeah, this is how we do it, and you basically send your music to supervisors, etc. And I was like, okay, but how do you enter in that world, And he told me about it. He was like, you just send, an email to this address with, your best couple of tracks, and tell them that you want to work for them, And if your music is good enough, they're going to accept it. Now, after a whole year of audio jungling, my music, the level again began, rising, because again, audio jungle was a pretty huge, like, big and organized training ground for me. And yeah, my music got better, so I was able to have some good material to send to the labels. Also, in the period when I worked on Audio Jungle, I had this cool thing happen to me. Like BBC One, the English channel for television, an agent or a person who worked in that channel for a program contacted me in private through Audio Jungle, asking me if they could license one of my Audio Jungle tracks to land on television on BBC One. And that was like after the first year of music production, after that sabbatical, that happened, and I was like, yes, so this is a good sign that giving up my job like that and focusing on music full time while making websites as a freelancer, that wasn't a really bad idea if this is happening to me, because like I am that kid who started from nothing, like no musical knowledge at all at 19. So that happened, and that was great, because I like posted this, like, this is stupid, but I will always remember this. Before, I started to make music seriously, I used to tell it to everyone, and told them, because Yeah, I'm an ambitious and dreamy guy, and I want other people to be the same. I want other people to be inspired to follow the dreams and stuff. So I told them, guys, I'm following my dreams. Look, you should do the same, And they will all get all skeptical and like, dude, get a job, be a normal person, or no, music is for losers. You're not gonna be able to feed yourself and stuff, And they told stuff like that demotivated me, and yeah, so there was a lot of hate from their part, or indifference, or stuff like that, and they was like, no, you cannot do it because you never studied music, or you're not famous, you cannot do it. So yeah, a lot of those kind of people were around, and when the BBC agent contacted me to have my track licensed on television on their program, I made this Facebook post where I was like, I wrote basically I put the photo of the contract, and I wrote a big post about how grateful I felt for the people who believed in me and not for the haters, and that was like my most popular post I ever made on Facebook. Received something like 150 likes, something like that, which for me is huge. I'm not one of those Instagram girls who post photos and get like 100 likes every fucking time, I'm a regular guy. So receiving that amount of love and gratitude, etc. from others, like it was really inspiring and pretty great. But the funny thing is that what happened is that even the haters were like, yes, I always believed in you, I knew it, and I was like, these guys, like, so it was funny. And yeah, that moment I was like, okay, I not only proved all the haters wrong, but I also have a sign now that I'm doing progress. Not only the tracks were allowed and approved on our jungle, but one of those tracks was also had also landed on BBC One, which was it earned me a little bit more than the typical audio jungle sale, but not like, I'm not talking about thousands of dollars, So again, it's not like I was able to do to have a sustainable income through BBC One's transmissions, but yeah, it was something. And my parents became a little bit more calm, and their idea of disowning me became much more far away and stuff, So it was good. And yeah, so that happened before I met this friend on Other Jungle. And then after I met him, I was like, he said, send the tracks to the label, and if you're good enough, they're going to accept you and tell you to compose for them. So I did. And I contacted like Really Slow Motion and Music and Sound Design, which is one of the biggest label. And it's the label that got me the placement today. And other labels as well. And yeah, the only label that got back at me was Really Slow Motion and Sound Design, which is also the best one, of the ones I contacted back in the day. And they were like, oh yeah, you have to. I wrote a little bit of my story in the email I sent them along with the tracks, and they were like, yeah, you have talent and you seem to have a good mindset, so work with us. And the guy asked me to add him on Facebook so he could do a little briefing with me about the track that I needed to write for their album. And he was like, oh yeah, you can make something like that. And yeah, so basically I started working with the labels. And this was, this was a year ago. A year ago. And so I started to work at the tracks that the label asked me to make. And while they accepted me on board, turns out my skills were not, good enough yet to make it into an album. So I went through a really rough and, a really intense period of supervision from this label supervisor, which helped me a ton, And but I kept, meeting new people because of this friend of mine who was introducing me to people, and also this friend introduced me to promo channels, about epic music promo channels. Since I made at the time I began making epic trailerish music with orchestral and electronic stuff. Like I had this orchestral dubstep track which I made, which was pretty great. And this friend was like, you could send it to, promo channels where you could get like thousands of views and listens and stuff. And I was like, oh, how do I get into the promo channels? And he said, you send the email and blah, blah, blah. So I did. And before that, like, my tracks got something like 50 plays on SoundCloud by my curious Facebook friends, nothing more, But when I started to send, my music to promo channels and it got accepted, like, that was the first time that I had my music being featured in channels where there were channels full of subscribers who actually enjoy to listen to that kind of music, Before, to have people enjoying my music, I had to contact people on Facebook saying, listen to my track, and that wasn't as good, because epic orchestral music is kind of a niche genre, so people was like, oh yeah, but where are the lyrics? Or when do the melodies come in and stuff? So, like, if you send your music to people who do not know how to enjoy that kind of music, like, you're not going to get good feedback, and that's typically what you want. So, yeah, I noticed this difference when I started to send my music to promo channels, and it was listened to people with the ears that wanted to listen to that kind of music, or that knew to interpret that language, of music. And the comments were amazing, and like, for the first time, my tracks got, thousands of likes and hundreds of thousands of plays, on YouTube. And people started to ask themselves, who is this guy? And, like, I had people add me on Facebook, or I added people I noticed on those channels on Facebook and stuff. And that was like me upgrading my circle of influence. And I became friends with promo channels, managers and stuff. And so, yeah, by the time all of that happened, I was working with trailer labels. I was meeting new composers, etc. that were better than me, and all of that contributed to my evolution musically. So I met a lot of interesting people, and in the meantime, I kept working under the supervision of Really Slow Motion at honing my skills, etc. And thanks to the fact that I was meeting new composers, etc., I could, ask my peers some questions about how I could improve my music, etc., and blah blah. And after some months, I finally made it, and I finally wrote a track that made sense, musically, in terms, like, sorry, not a track that made sense musically, but a track that reached the label's standards, thanks to all the advice I received from, the supervisor, but mostly from my composer friends, which I met thanks to my newly upgraded circle of influence, thanks to, promotion channels and stuff. So, yeah, people really helped me a lot in my journey so far. And I think, like, part of my success is credited by the fact that I worked hard at it, when I started working with the labels, and I had to hone my skills to reach the standards of the levels, because I was like the least experienced producer of the whole roster of producers who were working on the album. When I was at that level, I literally, like, worked on my music from something like 6, 7 in the morning till 10 p.m. every single day for like months, because I was so late, and I had so much catching up to do. Like, the label noticed the talent in me, and the motivation, but they did not, they did not think that my music was as good as it should be for their standards. And since I was in that position, I was like, okay, I have this awesome chance at, working with labels, which can be quite, great to have a sustainable musical career and sustainable income as a musician. So I'm not gonna let this go. So I was like, I'm still jobless, I do not have many commitments, etc. So I was like, this is it, I have to go all in now, or, all I did so far will be pretty much useless. So that's what I did. and I kept like I worked at it for like I think that in that period, like those few months was something like from March to August or something like that. In those months, my friends did not see me for more than something like 5 or 6 times from March till the end of August. I literally disappeared. My social life like it didn't exist anymore. Not to mention like girlfriends. I had no idea what they were in that period. My only thing was music, and I kept working at it hard and grinding it, because I had to catch up, and I eventually did. And part of my success is thanks to that, but another part which was as much important is the people that helped me, my composer peers, the supervisors, and my friends who, like my best friends, those who maybe like even if they didn't see me, like we talked on WhatsApp or Facebook and stuff, and they believed in me. That's the stuff that empowers you and that motivates you to go to keep going at it, because it's not like this journey was without moments of hesitation. I think I had more moments of hesitation myself than any other composer I know, and it was only thanks to the people who believed in me and people who pushed me that I made it so far. And yeah, so spent a few months of that, and finally in the end of August I had my first trailer music release with Really Slow Motion and End of Silence. And yeah, so that happened, and it was like in September. Sorry, at the end of August, and then September came, and I had this massive, moment of crisis, because after spending months at working and honing my craft and just to make it into the album of the trailer label, I kept myself so busy that I spent that period not thinking so much. And when all of that happened, like all of that finished and the album was done and we could cool off, all the thoughts and doubts and stuff started to come in like crazy, like they never had a chance to do in the past months. So it all accumulated until that moment of calm when it all came out, and I was like drowned in this, ocean of negative thoughts, and I started to not believe in myself and stuff like that, and to think my music had no meaning, and yeah, pretty rough stuff, because this journey wasn't it wasn't smooth. But they say a smooth ocean never made a skilled sailor or stuff like that, and I think this is very true. So I had this huge musical doubt, and even if I was the guy who started from nothing and was working now with Hollywood trailer labels, while I had my music on albums, I hadn't no tangible result like movie trailer placements at that time. So I could tell people, yeah, I'm a trailer label composer. But then when they ask, oh yeah, how much money you made, and I was like, so. And not only that, but I also felt a sort of artistic void, because I spent so much time working with labels under their standards and under their kind of needs, etc., that I could not express myself artistically fully, which is something you sometimes need to take the time to do. If you're a professional composer, this is more like a luxury, because composers, our job, like if you're a professional composer, you need to learn how to adapt yourself to the kind of media you're scoring for. So like if you're writing music for a love story, you need to adapt to that. You cannot write like gent metal, aggressive animals as leader stuff as a score. No, you have to write romantic stuff. Even if you're even if you broke up with your girlfriend like the night before, if you have to score a romantic movie which talks about love and stuff, even if you do not want to go there because you just broke up, you still have to do it. Or even if you want to instead write something again like metal, gent stuff, stuff, you cannot do it. So you, as a professional composer, you need to learn how to channel, your creativity in a really aimed way, precise way, and kind of not mechanical, but you need to you need to command your creativity, instead of having it express itself as it wants. And that is something you can do, and some people can do it for a long time and others for a shortened time. And I was like on the verge of crisis because I spent months not allowing my creativity to express itself freely. So I felt this inner, weight, like this is something personal, by the way. And I don't think anyone is like this, but for me, I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I need to express myself. I cannot bear the thought about writing another epic, bombastic, trailerish score. I just want to write music that expresses how I feel. Right now with my doubts, etc. So yeah, I had that period when I shut off for a while, and every time I sat down to write music, it felt like shit. But it just felt so unnatural and so not genuine, and I don't know. I felt like I had no sense of direction because I spent so many months following, like chasing a specific target, like having my track featured into those albums and writing as many tracks as I could. And when the target was gone, I felt like I had nothing left to chase until like I only have to wait for my trailer placements to come in. So, and it wasn't a very empowering feeling to be at, a very empowering perspective to be in. And it wasn't healthy either because I started to develop this sense of self-hatred. Because every time I sat down with the intention of writing music, I felt like everything I did was utter, garbage, and it was rough. And for a period, I decided to give up, on writing music. I felt like my artistic soul left me or stuff like that because I didn't like my creativity flow freely and for a long time, and it just ditched me. That's how it felt. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna give up now. I am just gonna sit down and write one last track before I call it quits on music and just go back to having a normal job like everyone else because this is too much. And I sat down and I started to write music. Like if you check, like I might have mentioned this in another video, but yeah, I started to compose this track, which was kind of cheesy in the beginning, but since this was my last track, I didn't felt like going back and fixing the cheesy parts, etc. I kept going at it, free stream of consciousness. And what came out of it was one of my best tracks ever, actually. And as I was like in the middle of the track, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is why I write music, this is awesome, And I kept working on the track like for the whole night, and the night after, and the night after again, and I spent like a week on it. It was like pretty much like writing a diary about how I felt, like lost and disempowered and with no sense of direction after my big, my big success of having my tracks landed in an album trailer, in a trailer album. And yeah, all of that, constant, doubting and negative thoughts, stuff like that, poured into my music. And for the track, because that kind of track, the track when I began, I was like, I have no, this track is not even going to go on my Audio Jungle channel. Like, this is only, the purpose of this track is me expressing my emotions, And by the end of it, I started, I found my my motivation, and I found my reason to write music again, I remembered why I decided to write music in the first place. And that was like a big revelation. Sometimes you need to remember, especially if you have been on the path for years. At that point, I was on the path for 2 years. You need to remember where you started, especially if you spend time chasing goals like I was with the label so blindly that you cannot see anything else. When you get the goal, you need to, look back and understand the situation, what got you there, etc. So that track taught me a lot about myself again. And I was like, okay, I was like, this is what I want to do, you know? I want to write music like this. Like, writing music for labels is great, it's awesome, and it's a great source of income if you get it right. But writing artistic music that feels like makes you feel something really deep, you know, that also makes other people feel something. Because when I made that track, I was like super fulfilled internally, even before publishing it. But after I published it, it got so popular, like, and so much, you know, commented with such, you know, beautiful messages and stuff, that I was like, wow, this is not only about me, you know, this is also about other people. Like, this really inspires other people, because this track is human. It talks about real emotions and, you know, with no filters. And I was like, yes, this is what I'd like to do, you know, and inspire people. So that's what I learned about myself, like, and that's what I remembered. My ideal, like my goal, the reason why I wanted to make a living at music is so that I could, you know, with my music, send messages to inspire people and to, you know, motivate them to chase their dreams. And I wanted to be like the first person to do that. Something like, hey, like I wanted to be that guy that started from absolute nowhere at 19 and that built himself a good music career and, yeah, you know, became relevant enough to have a say, you know. And all of that just to be the example, you know, to say to people, hey, I made this, you know, I I made my dreams come true, so you can too, you can too, you know. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to, you know, make it in my dreams so that I could, through my music, send inspiring and positive messages to the people who have dreams but who do not have the courage to chase them, or to the people who do have dreams but and do have the courage but are, you know, held back by other haters and stuff, like all the obstacles I had to face, you know. I know there is people out there who is facing the same obstacles and do not have, you know, do not have the courage or the possibility to start chasing their dreams, and they need the extra push. And then I wanted to be the extra push for that kind of people, because I once was like that. And this track, thanks to this track, it all came back, you know. It all came back, and then I was like, okay, I found my sense of direction. I know why I'm doing this. I just need a way to, you know, inspire people, do it, and make a living, because you have to earn your living. Like, you cannot. My thing is that I would like to do this full time, you know, inspire people full time. But to do something full time needs to pay your bills, you know. So I kept making trailer music, etc., and I kept on my route. But in the meantime, I had this constant thought in my head about what can I do to inspire people, what can I do to inspire people, and, you know, and to chase their dreams like I am doing, etc. And so that's basically how I came to start this YouTube channel. Before this YouTube channel, I had another channel called Limit Break Music, which was my old name, but I decided to change to my real name, Alex Moukala, because I figured that a more personal approach like this, with my true name and my face on the channel, etc., is much better when it comes to inspiring people. So I started this channel, and I posted the track which I was talking about before on this channel. And yeah, so I just had this idea, you know, this newfound idea that I wanted to inspire people with my art. And that was it for the moment. And so yeah, fast forward a little bit, and I found myself working with trailer labels again. And in the meantime, I kept asking myself the question: how can I inspire people? How can I inspire people? Blah, blah. And then came the idea for this channel where I could not only post music, because, like, you know, everyone posts music nowadays. Like, there are so many composers and producers, and it's just, I don't know, like, I think it's not enough to inspire people nowadays, you know. You need to add more value You need to add something else. You need to add your face, your messages in videos like this. So I started to make, vlogs and like this one. And also tutorials, because I figured like, well, musicians are usually they are the biggest dreamers, They are the people who want to, I don't know, I think artists are really interesting individuals because what we do, the prime source of our products come from our imagination, our dreams, our creativity, inspiration, and stuff like that. So I figured, artists are the most dreamy-ish person on earth. And since I'm an artist myself, and since I have, like, now after 3 years, I have some knowledge to give about my mistakes, about the way I got here, or about, what I learned about, music production, composition, etc. I was like, okay, maybe I can start to make some tutorials for people who would like to learn. So I recorded like this FL Studio playthrough of one of my tracks where I showed, like, I didn't talk, but I showed as the track went on how the project was made. I showed every window and notes, etc. to see if people had interest in that stuff. And there was like a very nice response, and people became curious and they were asking like, what are you using? What VST are you using? What technique? What this and that? Explain me this, explain me that. So it's like, oh, yeah, nice. So there are people who want to get inspired and want to learn. So I was like, okay, I can make tutorials. And that's how the idea of making tutorials came in. Also, I thought that, I thought back to my first beginning days as a producer. I used to consume a lot of tutorials from people like Varian, Zircon, and Seamless. And yeah, those helped me a long way. So I wanted to give back. And I started to make these tutorials for people who want to start making music, like the music I make. And that's why I'm doing these things right now. I want to inspire you guys, and I want to help and give back to people who are in my shoes, or like who are in the shoes where I was like a few years ago. And since I noticed there are a lot of people like that, I was like, since I noticed there are a lot of people like this, I noticed that maybe I could, start a sort of, mentoring program or stuff like that, where I could, act as a mentor or as a teacher for those people who are serious enough about their music to the point that they want to invest in themselves monetarily by, hiring a coach or, private mentor and stuff. So I was like, okay, maybe I can do this YouTube tutorial thing, and then I can, with Patreon or stuff like that, offer mentoring myself, pretty much as Varian offered mentoring to me back in the day. I can offer it to, newbie composers and stuff. So that's what I'm doing on my Patreon page right now. And I think I haven't started officially with this, but yeah, if you're interested in having, receiving mentoring lessons from me about, I don't know, music, orchestral music, especially cinematic music and trailer music and stuff, go check out my Patreon page, because that's where that thing is going to be held. YouTube is going to be mainly, like my YouTube channel is going to be mainly about, general tutorials and stuff, and inspiring vlogs like this one, for example, or me rambling about random stuff. But for those who are looking for direct mentoring and feedback and stuff, supervision from a part, or Skype lessons, go check out my Patreon page, which I will link in the description of this video. Anyway, that's how I started this YouTube channel, and that's pretty much my story so far. And yeah, finally today, for the first time, I had the label manager say to me like, congratulations Alex, your music is now going to be featured in a Hollywood movie trailer, which is kind of big, especially for me at this stage. Like, I've been working with trailer labels for a year, that's right, but I haven't, reached the level where I make a sustainable living, with it only, And instead this Ben Here, placement, yeah, it helps monetarily, but not only that, it's also like a huge and big sign that I might be onto something good and that I have something to teach you guys. Because I mean, like, I'm not the best orchestral composer and stuff. Like, I have a lot of flaws myself. I have a lot of things to learn as well. And this is another reason why I started this YouTube channel, because when you teach, you learn. And I'm also more motivated to learn now because I need to have something to, educate you guys with. So most of my videos here are about stuff which I learned pretty much a short while before I made the video, and yeah, which I end up teaching you guys so that I can consolidate my learning about that stuff. Anyway, so yeah, I'm not like for me this is just the beginning of my journey, but I want to document it on this YouTube channel by tagging along with by going along with you guys through this journey, but by mentoring you and telling you about my discoveries, my mistakes, and about the techniques I discover when it comes to music production, orchestration, and stuff. And yeah, basically be something like a bridge between the world of aspiring composer and the world of composers who do that for a living. And while I'm still not there myself, I'm close enough that I feel like I can start to become that sort of bridge. So yeah, that's why I do what I do. Anyway, sorry for the long rant, and if you stuck together through the end of the video, thank you. I'm glad that there is people who's listening to this. Anyway, if you have questions or any doubts on or about something I said, or if you want to know more about my story or know more about Patreon or stuff, I don't know, just write it down in the comments below or contact me on my Facebook fan page, where I answered people quite fast enough. So yeah, see you guys there in case you need to have more, you want more information about all of this. But anyway, yeah, what did I want to say? Oh yeah, about the tutorials. I wanted to post a tutorial before the end of the week, but I couldn't make it in time. So you won't be seeing any more tutorials this week, and because I'm going to be away until Wednesday, so maybe I'm going to be making a tutorial before the end of last week. And yeah, the reason why I take a long time to make those tutorials is because I want to I want to be sure that the stuff I teach you guys is really valuable, I do not want to be one of those channels filled with lots of tutorial which are not that good and really don't teach you much, and actually teach you how to do things the wrong way. I might, unconsciously maybe teach you something which is not politically correct or stuff like that, because again, I have lots of, I'm still learning myself, but my intention is to provide to you the best learning material, so that's why I take a little bit long to make the tutorial. Also, the reason is also because I'm still making, I'm still working on websites and stuff, and trailer label music and stuff, so doing these three things at the same time is kind of sloppy and stuff. So yeah, if my YouTube channel gets more established, for sure I'm going to make more tutorials faster, etc. But for now, you have to stick with me with the speed which I am at. Anyway, yeah, if you have more questions or stuff, just ask, and see you guys in the next videos.